Are you going to let these algorithms turn you into a bitter, angry, disconnected version of yourself? Or are you going to fight back to reclaim your capacity for compassion and kindness? Welcome to the Kindness Extremist Podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. I've spoken to tens of thousands of people all over the world about the importance of kindness. And I am obsessed with how we can bring more kindness into our daily lives and restore balance to a deeply unbalanced world. Every episode, I'll give you 3 practical strategies to create a kinder world, and I'll do it in 30 minutes or less. No fluff, just valuable, actionable content that you can implement in your life immediately after listening to help you actively create a kinder world. There's no time to waste. Let's dive in. What's up, my friend? Welcome back to episode 42 of the Kindness Extremist Podcast. I'm your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa. And today we're diving into something that I guarantee is affecting your ability to be kind, even if you don't realize it. I'm talking about social media, that digital drug dealer that's got us all hooked on dopamine hits while simultaneously draining our capacity for compassion and kindness. Now, before you roll your eyes and think, oh, great, another person telling me to quit social media and go live in a cabin in the woods. Okay, pump the brakes. That's not what this episode is about. I'm not here to shame you for being on social media. Hell, I'm on it too. You probably wouldn't even have found me or this podcast if it weren't for social media. But I am here to have a very real conversation about how our scrolling habits are quietly assassinating our kindness one swipe at a time. Let me paint a picture of what happened to me during my downtime during the holidays. So I woke up feeling pretty good. I had a plan to meditate for 15 minutes and do some journaling, both of which I detailed in episode 30 of this podcast, by the way. And I was ready to spread some Brother Teresa energy into the world. Then I made the catastrophic mistake of checking my social media feed before starting my day. Within 10 minutes, y'all, I went from a peaceful kindness warrior to a rage monster committed to choosing violence. First post that I saw was some ridiculous political hot take that made my blood pressure spike. Second post I saw was a video of someone being cruel to a person experiencing homelessness. Third post was some people celebrating someone's personal tragedy in the comment section. By the time I put my phone down, I was ready to fight everybody and their mama. Real talk. And here's the wild part about all this. I had barely even gotten out of bed, and here I was already emotionally exhausted and filled with contempt for humanity. How in the hell was I supposed to go out and create a kinder world when I'd already marinated my brain in a toxic stew of outrage before 7 a.m.? This, my friend, is what is often called doom scrolling, or as I like to call it, the scroll of doom. That mindless, endless scrolling through content that's algorithmically designed to make us angry, afraid, or envious. And as mentioned earlier, it's absolutely destroying our capacity for kindness. According to research from the University of Pennsylvania, people who limited their social media use to 30 minutes per day showed significant reductions in loneliness and depression after just 3 weeks. 3 weeks! Meanwhile, heavy social media users showed increased levels of anxiety, decreased empathy, and here's the wild part, reduced activity in the parts of their brain associated with compassion. We are literally rewiring our brains to be less kind one scroll at a time. So in today's episode, I'm going to expose 3 specific ways social media is sabotaging your kindness, and more importantly, I'm going to give you 3 battle-tested strategies to fight back. To be clear, this is not going to be your typical solutions telling you to take a digital detox, which admittedly is not a bad idea every now and then. These are practical, realistic strategies for those of us who need to stay connected but refuse to let these platforms turn us into bitter, angry versions of ourselves. So, if you're ready to break free from the scroll of doom and reclaim your capacity for kindness, let's get to it. For the first kindness killer we need to address, let me lovingly slap you across the face with some truth that you need to hear. You're being manipulated. Every single time you open a social media app, you're entering into a carefully engineered psychological experiment designed to keep you scrolling, clicking, and most importantly, getting you to stay stuck deep in your feelings. And here's the wildest part about this. The algorithm doesn't care if the feelings are positive or negative. You don't need to be an Ivy League researcher to know that content that triggers anger spreads way faster and further than any other type of content. Anger is literally the most viral emotion on the internet. Let me tell you what's happening in your brain every single time you're doom scrolling. Every time you see something that makes you angry, your amygdala, that's your brain's alarm system, lights up like a Christmas tree. Your body releases cortisol and adrenaline, putting you in fight or flight mode. You're basically microdosing stress hormones all day long. Now, when you're in this constant state of low-grade fight or flight, guess what happens for your capacity for empathy? It shuts down. Your brain literally cannot be in survival mode and compassion mode at the same time. It's neurologically impossible. Personally, I learned this the hard way during the 2020 election cycle. Since I was pretty much trapped inside due to the pandemic, I was spending hours every day consuming political content, getting into arguments with strangers in the comment sections, sharing outrage-inducing articles all day long. I told myself I was staying informed and I was fighting the good fight. But do you know what I was actually doing? I was turning into an insufferable ass. My wife called me out on it one evening. She said, ever since you started spending all this time on social media, you become really harsh. You're quick to judge, slow to listen, and you seem angry all the time. Ooh, that hit me like a ton of bricks, man, because she was absolutely right. I had become so consumed with fighting against unkindness online that I had become unkind myself. The irony was not lost on me. Here's the insidious part about the outrage algorithm. It makes you feel like you're doing something important. When you share that angry post or leave that scathing comment, you get a little hit of self-righteousness. I'm fighting injustice, your brain tells you. But in reality, you're just feeding the beast that's making everyone angrier and less compassionate. So here's the first kindness strategy of the episode. I call it the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reset. And for any Mel Robbins fans listening to this episode, this has nothing to do with her iconic 5-second rule. Allow me to explain. So, when you catch yourself in the scroll of doom, spiraling into outrage, you need an emergency brake for your nervous system. This is a technique adapted from anxiety treatment and works exceptionally well here. So here's how this works. First, put your phone down and stop scrolling immediately. Then identify 5 things you can see in your physical environment, not on your screen. Then identify 4 things you can touch and actually touch them. Then identify 3 things you can actually hear. Then identify 2 things that you can smell, and then identify 1 thing that you can taste and actually taste it. This whole process takes maybe 60 seconds, but it pulls your brain out of that weird digital fight or flight state and grounds you back in physical reality. It literally resets your nervous system in real time. But here's the critical part. After you do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reset, you need to make a choice. Ask yourself, is continuing to scroll going to make me a kinder person or a more bitter person? 9 times out of 10, you already know the answer. After discovering this technique, I do this reset at least once a day now, and it's been a game changer for me. It's like installing a circuit breaker between the outrage algorithm and my emotional state. The algorithm can try to manipulate it all at once, but thankfully now I've got a kill switch. Most importantly, my friend, it comes down to this. Do you want to be in control of your social media usage, or do you want the social media algorithms to be in control of how you think, act, and feel? As always, the choice is yours, but only one option will get you closer to creating a kinder world. For the second way social media is destroying your kindness, we need to talk about something that no one wants to admit. We're all comparing ourselves to everyone else all the time, and it's making us secretly hate the people we claim to care about. Theodore Roosevelt said comparison is the thief of joy, but I'm going to take it one step further. Comparison is the thief of compassion. When you're constantly measuring your behind-the-scenes struggles against everyone else's highlight reels, it doesn't just make you miserable, it makes you resentful. And as I'm sure you know, resentment is kindness kryptonite. For example, I have a buddy who I'll call Reggie. He's a great dude, he's smart, talented, hardworking, but Reggie has a problem. He is addicted to LinkedIn. Every morning, my guy scrolls through post after post of people announcing their promotions, their new ventures, their TED Talks, their whatever. And every scroll makes him a little bit more bitter. One day, a mutual friend of ours posted about getting a book deal, something that should have been a moment of celebration. You know what Reggie said to me? Must be nice to have connections. Some of us actually have to work for things. I was stunned. This was completely out of character for Reggie. So when I pressed him on it, he broke down, admitted that seeing everyone else's success on social media was eating him alive. He said, yeah, man, look, I know I should be happy for people, but honestly, every time I see someone succeeding, a part of me secretly hopes that they'll fail. Oof. That's what constant comparison does. It turns other people's joy into your pain, and eventually, you start rooting against people instead of for them. You become less likely to celebrate others, less likely to help them, less likely to show them kindness. I used to experience this myself with Instagram. Early in my speaking career, I'd see speakers and authors posting about their sold out events, their best selling books, and instead of feeling inspired, I'd feel inadequate. Then I'd see them in person at conferences, and instead of connecting with them, I'd avoid them. My insecurity was blocking my ability to build relationships and show support. I am beyond grateful that I've outgrown that toxic stage of my development. So here's the second kind of strategy of the episode: the celebration practice. Here's what changed everything for me, and it's going to sound counterintuitive, so please stick with me on this. I started forcing myself to celebrate others' wins, especially when I didn't feel like it. Every time I see someone sharing good news on social media, I stop and do one or more of the following things. One, I leave a genuine, specific comment celebrating them, not just an emoji or a congrats. Two, I share the post if appropriate, adding why I'm so excited for them. Or three, I send them a private message if we're connected, offering any help or support I can provide. I'm not going to lie to you. Many years ago, when I started doing this and keeping it real, because I was so deeply insecure, it felt fake as hell to do this, and I was gritting my teeth through this. But something magical happened about 2 weeks of doing this consistently. It stopped feeling forced. I actually started feeling genuinely happy for people. And now, 8 years later, I'm sincerely excited about other success as I am for my own. This may sound crazy to you, but it's so true. And here's why this works. When you act with kindness, even when you don't feel it initially, your brain starts to align with your actions. Your brain doesn't like the disconnect between your kind actions and your unkind feelings, so it adjusts your feelings to match your behavior. But let's go deeper, because there's such a bigger benefit to this. When you start celebrating others, you're training your brain to see success as abundant rather than scarce. You're literally rewiring your neural pathways from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And when you believe there's enough successes to go around, you stop seeing other people's wins as your losses. And from a slightly woo-woo perspective here, over the past 8 years of doing this consistently, the universe has brought me more happiness and more success than I ever could have dreamed of previously. Now, I want to be clear about something. This does not mean you have to celebrate people who are genuinely problematic or harmful. If someone's success, air quotes, come from stepping on others, plagiarizing others' work, or spreading hate, you don't owe them your celebration. This is about celebrating the good faith achievements of the people in your network. And as mentioned, the transformation this has created in my life was profound. Not only did I become genuinely happier for others, but my relationships deepened. People started reaching out to me more, collaborating with me more, and here's the beautiful irony: celebrating my wins more enthusiastically. So when we choose to use social media as a place to lift others up instead of as a toxic Hunger Games style competition, it literally creates more of the energy needed to create a kinder world. And who doesn't want more of that? Hey, fellow kindness extremists, it's me, Shola. If you're picking up what I'm putting down, if you're mowing what I'm growing, if you're smelling what I'm stepping in. Okay, I'll stop. If you're enjoying what you're listening to so far, I would love it if you would take a moment to hit the subscribe button and leave a rating and a review. Those incredibly kind acts go so far in helping me to reach as many people as possible who will join the movement to actively create a kinder world. I appreciate you so much, my friend. Okay, let's get back to the episode. Now for the third and possibly most dangerous way that social media is killing your kindness. It's turning you into the type of person who sees anyone outside your echo chamber as the enemy. Real talk, my friend. When was the last time you had a meaningful, respectful conversation on social media with someone who fundamentally disagreed with you? I'm not talking about dropping facts on someone and walking away. I'm talking about actual dialogue where both people walked away with more understanding, even if they still disagreed. If you're like most people, the answer is probably never. And there's a reason for that. Social media algorithms are designed to show you content that aligns with what you already believe in and engage with. They create these perfectly insulated bubbles where everyone thinks like you, talks like you, and validates your worldview. It feels comfortable, it feels safe, it feels right. But here's what's actually happening. You're being radicalized into unkindness towards anyone outside of your bubble. I am not using the word radicalized lightly here. When you only interact with people who share your views, those views don't get reinforced. They get amplified to the extreme. Researchers call this group polarization, and it has been documented extensively. Groups of like-minded people don't trend toward moderation, they trend toward extremism. Let me share you an example of what was shared in one of my workshops a few years ago. One of my attendees shared that she was deeply embedded in a particular online community focused on social justice. Now, obviously, fighting for justice is important. It's a critical part of creating a kinder world. but she shared that this particular community had developed its own language, its own rules, its own way of determining who was good and who was problematic. One day, her cousin posted something on Facebook that used some outdated terminology about a marginalized group. It wasn't malicious. He literally didn't know the terminology had changed. But instead of educating him kindly, she publicly called him out in a sanctimonious post and watched as her echo chamber friends piled on him in the comments. Her cousin called her nearly in tears afterward and said, "Hey, I was just trying to be supportive and you made me feel like a monster. I don't even want to engage in these issues anymore because I'm terrified of saying the wrong thing." It was such a powerful story. I'm so glad that she shared this in the workshop. And sadly, in this woman's quest to fight for kindness and justice, she had become cruel to someone who actually had similar views, but didn't know the current rules, air quotes, of her echo chamber. Listening to her share that story made me reflect on the times where sadly I've done the same thing and acted in a similar manner. This is happening across every ideological spectrum, by the way, whether your echo chamber is progressive or conservative, religious or atheist, vegan or carnivore, it doesn't matter. The mechanism is still the same. The more insulated you become, the less capable you are showing kindness to outsiders. And worst of all, the social media companies have no intention of stopping our steady slide into the abyss, which means it's up to you and to me to do the uncommon work of bringing some much needed sanity back to our social media interactions. So here's the third kindness strategy of the episode, the Bridge Builder Challenge. Here's my challenge to you, and fair warning, this one takes real courage. Once a week, engage genuinely with content from someone outside of your usual echo chamber. But here's the catch. You have to engage with curiosity, not combat. So here's how to do it. First, find someone who holds different views but seems to be operating in good faith. There's a key disclaimer though. Don't waste your time engaging with obvious trolls or bad actors. If you don't know the difference, please listen to part 3 of episode 35 of this podcast to get crystal clear on this before engaging. Second, ask a genuine question about their perspective. Not a gotcha question, not a rhetorical question, but an actual question that shows that you want to understand. For example, "Hey, I'm curious, can you tell me more about how you came to this conclusion?" Third, review their response without immediately formulating your rebuttal. Fourth, thank them for sharing their perspective, even if you disagree. And finally, and if appropriate, share something from your perspective as a personal experience, not as an attack on theirs. I started doing this a few years ago, and it was, and is, very hard work. The first few times I had to literally sit on my hands to stop myself from typing angry responses, but slowly, something shifted. I had an online conversation with a guy who had completely different political views than me. Instead of attacking his position, I asked, "So what personal experiences led you to this belief?" He shared a story about his family business that he perceived was being destroyed by certain policies. I still disagree with his conclusions, but I understood his pain. And understanding his pain allowed me to respond with compassion instead of contempt. He said something to me that I'll never forget, and I'm paraphrasing. He said, "You're the first person from your side who actually listened to me instead of calling me names. Thank you for treating me like a human being." Now, mind you, this conversation didn't change either of our political positions, but it changed something more important. It reminded us both that there's a human being on the other side of the screen. Now, let me be crystal clear about something. This strategy is not, NOT, about tolerating intolerance. You don't need to engage with people who deny your humanity or your right to exist. You don't need to hear out hate speech. This is about engaging with people who have different perspectives, but are operating within the bounds of basic human decency. The goal isn't to change anyone's mind or to have your mind change, although anything is possible, right? The goal is to maintain your capacity for kindness towards people who think differently than you. Because if we can only be kind to people who think and behave exactly like us, is that really kindness? Personally, I don't think so. If anything, that's a bootleg version of kindness that may help us to sleep better at night, but in reality is doing nothing meaningful to create a kinder world. As the late Nobel Peace Prize winner and human rights activist Desmond Tutu wisely said, quote, "If you want peace, you don't talk to your friends, you talk to your enemies," end quote. In other words, if you want to enjoy more peaceful interactions on and off social media, it's going to require you to talk to people who don't see the world in the same way that you do. All right, my friend, let's bring this home. We covered a lot of ground today. And if you're feeling a little called out, that's okay. That means that this message is resonating at a personal level, which is exactly what I'm going for. We exposed 3 ways that social media is systematically destroying our capacity for kindness. And more importantly, I've given you 3 battle-tested strategies to fight back. First, the outrage algorithm is keeping you in a state of constant fight or flight, literally shutting down your empathy circuits. Your brain cannot be in survival mode and compassion mode simultaneously. It's neurologically impossible. You can combat this with a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 reset to pull yourself out of the digital rage spiral and back into your physical reality. I'm urging you not to dismiss this as some fluffy nonsense. This is a neurological circuit breaker that takes about 60 seconds and can save you from hours of anger. Second, constant comparison is turning other people's success into your source of pain, making you resentful instead of supportive. When you're measuring your chapter 3 against someone else's chapter 20, you're not just making yourself miserable, you're training your brain to see the world through a lens of scarcity and competition. Fight back with a celebration practice. Force yourself to sincerely celebrate others until your brain rewires from scarcity to abundance. Yes, I get it. It will feel fake at first. Just stick with it because it has the power to change how you view the world. Third, echo chambers are radicalizing you into unkindness toward anyone outside of your bubble. You're being trained to see disagreement as danger and different perspectives as threats. Challenge this with the bridge builder practice. Weekly engagement with different perspectives through curiosity rather than combat. And remember, this isn't about debating anyone or converting anyone. It's about maintaining your humanity in a digital world that is trying to strip it away. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Shola, this sounds like a lot of work. Can I just scroll in peace? What? No, you cannot. Not if you care about creating a kinder world, and here's why. Every single time you mindlessly doom scroll, you're not just wasting time, you're actively training your brain to be less compassionate. Every outrage post you consume without questioning it, every success story that makes you bitter, every us versus them narrative that you internalize, it's all compound interest working against your ability to create a kinder world. Look, I'm not telling you to quit social media. That's unrealistic for most of us. And honestly, these platforms can be forces for good when used intentionally. But, and it's a big but, we need to stop pretending that our social media habits aren't affecting our capacity for kindness. They absolutely are. The question is this: are you going to let these algorithms turn you into a bitter, angry, disconnected version of yourself? Or are you going to fight back to reclaim your capacity for compassion and kindness? The choice is yours, but let me leave you with this thought. Every time you choose to break the scroll of doom, every time you celebrate instead of compare, every time you build bridges instead of walls, you're not just protecting your own kindness, you're modeling a different way of being online. You're showing others that it's possible to be connected without being cruel, to be informed without being outraged, to disagree without being disrespectful. And in a world where the algorithms are pushing us towards extremism and unkindness, that kind of modeling isn't just important, it's life-changing. Remember, we're not just trying to be nice here. Nice would be just avoiding conflict online altogether. We're trying to be kind, and real kindness means engaging with the digital world in a way that makes it better, not worse. The social media companies are counting on you to be too addicted, too angry, too comfortable in your bubble to change. Prove them wrong. Show them that you're strong enough to be kind, even when the algorithm is working against you. If you're willing to do this uncommon work, I believe that a better world will be waiting for us on the other side. This is your host, Shola Richards, aka Brother Teresa, and you now know that kindness can't be weak because you've just experienced the strength of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Until next time, my friend, the journey to a kinder world continues. Thank you for listening to the Kindness Extremist podcast. I really hope that you enjoyed this episode, and I have one favor to ask you. If you could kindly hit the subscribe button, leave a rating and a review, not only would that be incredibly kind, but by doing so, you're actively playing a role in growing this movement and ideally getting us one step closer to creating a kinder world. I hope to see you next week for another episode of the Kindness Extremist podcast. Bye for now.